Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for this week's Tidbit. Today, I will be talking about the silent struggle of dysphoric milk ejection reflex. I think that this is a very important one to tune into if you plan on breastfeeding or already are. It's very commonly missed, and it's great to have some awareness about it. So what is dysphoric milk ejection reflex? DMER is a condition affecting lactating women that is characterized by abrupt dysphoria or negative emotions that occur just before milk release and continuing not more than a few minutes. Dysphoria is defined as an unpleasant or uncomfortable mood, such as sadness, feeling depressed, anxiety, irritability, or restlessness. DMER is like a reflex. It is controlled by hormones and cannot be controlled by the mother. She cannot talk herself out of dysphoria. So we'll talk about the characteristics of DMER. The dysphoria a mother feels comes on suddenly before letdown and leaves within 30 seconds to 2 minutes. She feels the dysphoria before she feels the letdown sensation in her breasts, though not all mothers feel a physical letdown sensation. Often by the end of the first letdown, she feels fine again and this dysphoria is gone. It can happen for the first letdown of a feeding or for all letdowns in a feeding, depending on the intensity of your DMER. You may or may not have dysphoria with letdowns when pumping and before spontaneous letdowns. This is dependent on the intensity of your DMER. DMER has nothing to do with nipple contact or with irritation with the sensation of nipple tugging. The mother does not even have to be thinking about breastfeeding. So for example, like your spontaneous letdowns. So when we're talking about spontaneous letdowns, it's like when you hear those stories about how you're able to, that you leak when you hear a baby cry. So those types of things, or even when you're pumping, it depends on you really. For the dysphoria to happen is when in any way that milk is released or triggered. So we're going to talk about what DMR is not. So just a lot of things that it can get confused with. DMER is not a psychological response to breastfeeding. It's actually a physiological response to milk release. It's more physical. DMER could be confused with postpartum depression, but it's not, nor is it classified, it's not even classified as a postpartum mood disorder. DMER is not nausea during your letdown or any other isolated physical symptom or manifestation. DMER has a negative emotion component above all else. DMER is not a general dislike to breastfeeding. So it's not involved with feeling impatient when baby is at the breast, irritability from nipple pain, sadness during pumping because of separation from baby, or a circumstance of any sort of aversion to breastfeeding. I'm going to talk about the dopamine's role in DMER. So DMER has been linked to an inappropriate drop in dopamine that occurs when milk is released. In a mother with DMER, at the time of letdown, dopamine falls inappropriately, causing negative feelings. Milk release itself isn't caused by dopamine dropping, it's caused by oxytocin actually rising. In DMER, the milk ejection reflex is a result of rising oxytocin needed to move the milk out of the breast. But the dysphoria is a result of inappropriate falling dopamine. Dopamine gets involved because it inhibits prolactin. So prolactin is the hormone which actually helps make your milk. So dopamine levels need that drop for prolactin levels to rise in order to make more milk. Normally, dopamine drops properly, and breastfeeding mothers would never know that it's even happening. In DMER mothers, however, it doesn't drop properly. It causes an instant and brief wave of a negative emotion reaction that lasts until the dopamine levels restabilize after the prolactin has begun its rise. So we're going to talk about the spectrum and the intensity. The experience of DMER is variable, and a mother will have either despondency DMER, anxiety DMER, or agitation DMER. Her dysphoria will fall on its own place on the emotional spectrum, ranging from like a homesickness, so mild DMER, to the anger, severe agitation. There are 3 intensities of DMER that included mild, moderate, and severe. These intensities are determined by the mother's interpretation of the intensity, how long the DMER takes to self-correct, and how many letdowns per feeding she feels the dysphoria, and other criteria. Mild cases often self-correct within the first 3 months, moderate by month 9, and the severe sometimes can not really correct itself until about the first year or even a little bit later. So how can you correct DMER? For mothers with mild DMER, education goes a long way in treatment. Many find their symptoms more easily managed once they are aware it is a medical problem and not an emotional problem. Moderate DMER can also be reduced using education as treatment. If this is not enough, then these mothers should be encouraged to track their DMER in a log to help them become aware of things that may aggravate their symptoms. So you'll see stress, dehydration, or caffeine are very common symptoms that would involve with that. And things that may relieve the symptoms would be like things like extra rest, better hydration exercises, and all that jazz. They should look into lifestyle changes and natural remedies to help them further. Mothers with more severe DMER may need a prescription in order to manage your DMER if you feel that you may need to wean because of it, if it's that severe. Thus far, treatments that increase dopamine levels in a mother treat DMER effectively. And if her DMER is severe and yet is not at risk for weaning, then using education is more of a treatment. And to always ask your doctor, of course, before you're kind of going on to the natural remedies part, but that's at your discretion. And lifestyle changes are the more appropriate course of action. Be kind to yourself and reach out. Be kind to yourself and reach out. If you are experiencing these symptoms, make sure that you talk to a healthcare professional that you've been working with as soon as possible. You are not alone. DMER is so rarely talked about because many women suffer in silence, and we need to talk about it a little bit more, bring out that awareness. DMER does not have to be a reason to wean if recognized or treated. And just if you can, please share this with other breastfeeding parents so that we can bring more awareness, and more awareness comes understanding and helping. So thank you everybody for listening in. I got basically all of this information from dmer.org. I really found it was great. There's tons of information there. You'll find resources. I'll make sure that I'll put it in a link down below. And we'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks.